I really like that you can pick up on beauty in ugliness. For a long time, I had that imposter syndrome that many people experience. It's kind of unhealthy because then you sort of think, well, I don't deserve to be here. And that's not true. You know, you're still, if people are enjoying what you do, you deserve to be there. That's okay. Some people will like it, other people won't. Some people love it, other people won't rate it at all, and all of that is fine. I like the absurdity of it. And I think for me it's the absurdity of the scene that I can create with a miniature. They're actually like real little people to me. Yeah. So they'll have their own personality, in my mind, that is.
Before we get into this episode, I just want to thank you for being here. I started this podcast to spark conversations that inspire, creatively, personally, and everything in between. So if you'd like to support that mission, the best way is to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching or listening to this. That'll help other creative minds discover us and also ensures that you won't miss any of the incredible guests that we've got coming up. Because when this passion is shared, it grows exponentially. So thank you, and now let's get stuck into it. Societally, or even just like culturally forever, our relationship with death has always been something that is, there's grief, sadness, and it's all this negative feeling.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. It's not going away.
No, well, that's right. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And I wonder if it's like the Western ideology of it. We don't do, in Western culture, I don't think we do death very well.
No.
And I've certainly, like I've even started a book already of just writing down who to call if I died tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is where my husband has to go to get all of my, you know, this is who I want you to call, and then this is who they need to call. And yeah, just all my, you know, I don't know, passwords and passport number and I don't know, all of the things. So you've just got a book and it's all there, and you don't have to stress about finding information when you're already shocked and grief-stricken and all of that sort of thing.
Just tweet it.
It's just, yeah, it'll forever be there.
Yeah, and just so it can get distributed that way.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
On death seems to be a bit of a recurring theme in your work as well, but done in a satirical way. Is that one way of you, when you say that you spent a lot of time thinking about it and stewing on it just to try to channel it and, I don't know, just be a bit more playful?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird because I actually see them separately. So during the day I'll worry about death and I don't want to die, and, you know, I sort of, I overthink it completely. But then on the art front, when I'm doing, you know, something in miniature that's death or dying or a murder or someone's fallen off and broken their leg and then passed away and there's blood and, you know, a bit of gore and what have you, I find that hilarious. So I don't know. I then don't know what is wrong with my brain because I'm on one hand stressing about it and then on the other I'm finding it really funny. So
that's just the outlet, right? Like if that's the humor as the relief.
Yeah,
that's something that we turn to a lot.
Yeah, maybe that. And it's funny, I've never really thought about how different that is for me in real life versus, because they're you know, it's fantasy, the artworks and the little stories and the characters and the narrative. It's all fantasy and it's all sort of you can't take it seriously because it's in miniature. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if it was a lifelike structure, it would be an entirely different context. Whereas because it's in miniature, I think
a bit more confronting if it was 1-to-1 scale.
Yeah.
Probably, I think you might be right.
Maybe.
And seeing an actual body rather than this cute little...
Yeah, funny little thing with a white sheet over it and a blood-stained grass. And, you know, I just think... Because, I mean, of course, in real life, that isn't funny when somebody's hurt themselves or been murdered or,
But when you shrink it down, it's like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way.
What do you think is our fascination with miniatures? Why do you think that we're so drawn to it? Or why are you so drawn to it?
I like the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, there's miniatures in perhaps people who have, trains, the hobbyists. But for me, it's the absurdity of the scene that I can create with a miniature. And so if I am working on a piece, for example, those miniatures, there will always be a hero person, but they're actually like real little people to me.
Yeah.
So they'll have their own personality in my mind, that is. And yeah, I don't know, I like the absurdity of the fact that you can
and the scale, right? Because you
Yeah.
also will then introduce in many of your pieces something lifelike
Yeah.
at the one-to-one scale that
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
brought into the miniature world.
Yeah, that's right. So it's like this whole other universe going on, but also crossing over into ours as well. It's hard to explain because there's sometimes there's a lot going on in my mind when I do it, and other times there's not a lot going on. And I'm so guided by humour, really, and
Dark humor. It reminds me a lot
Dark
of
humour.
a Simon Pegg movie. Do you know Simon Pegg?
Oh, he's fantastic. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
hilarious.
I see a lot of that really dark kind of morbid humor.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because he's awesome.
He's good.
Yeah,
He's good.
He's awesome, and I do love dark comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I love comedy in general, and I think I also grew up in an era where my father introduced me to Peter Sellers. So,
Yeah.
and just the ridiculousness of the Pink Panther and all that whole, I mean, I found that as a kid really hilarious.
Yeah.
And just the bumbling antics of him. And I love that, that sort of.
Your work does feel very old school British humor.
Yeah, yeah.
It comes through. It comes through.
That's good. Thanks. That's nice. Yeah, I like that people are just, in those miniatures, they are literally bumbling through life. And
Yep, I see that.
a kind of there's this misfortune along the way, and just I don't know, laughable stuff. And then putting the story together in a kind of dad joke way is like a whole other element to it. But
just making light of a dark situation.
Yeah.
We love, like in our household, we've seen a lot of videos of dioramas and miniatures being made, and my son loves it. When we were over in Japan recently, he just bought a whole bunch of small things, right?
That
He just
would have been
loves
amazing.
miniature form stuff.
Yeah.
Like and they love it over in Japan as well. You know, just all their trinkets. Yeah, so it got me thinking about like what is what's the appeal about it? And like with your pieces, especially just the way they're done, that it's almost like a bit of a discovery when you find it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you get pulled into it. And I'm thinking like your work versus a one-to-one scale, it does confront differently versus another artist who might do things at scale large, where they get small things and blow it up large.
Yeah.
There's a fascination that we have of things just being disproportionate to the context.
You're quite right. Especially in Australia with all our big things.
Yeah.
And we love it. And there's books and there's, travel journeys, around discovering all of those things.
Yeah. And there's so many of these places where they have like, in a bookshelf where you could just find a little nook in there and you open it up.
Yeah, love it.
It's so captivating, and I think it really draws you in.
It does.
And it just gets me thinking where, like, with your work, that there's a lot of detail, but because there is a narrative going on, it gets people looking for things, which we wouldn't normally do just walking around the street.
Yeah.
Like we miss so much.
Yeah.
But yet, when we're looking at a small thing, we would then be so immersed in it that we start picking apart the details.
I know, and I love that. That's so true. And especially when I first started doing these in the street,
Mm.
in laneways, and I'd go around, walking laneways all the time and finding these little nooks and a missing brick or, crack in the wall that had enough space to put something in it. It made me look at the world around me very differently, and that's something I really appreciate about what I started doing, because you do notice little things, and you might also notice how beautiful an exposed brick is, or
Mhm.
the kind of dirtiness and the griminess of an alleyway actually to me is really beautiful, because you can see so much. Whereas when we're, let's just say, on our lunch break and you're walking through the city and you're kind of on a mission to get something done really quickly, and you don't look around, you
Yeah.
don't notice things, and you don't see a beautiful, or you may not see a beautiful wall or a gorgeous brick, or I don't know. I really like that you can pick up on beauty in ugliness
Well, in anything, right? In the
or in
detail,
anything.
right? Like it's
Yeah,
just the imperfections is what makes it beautiful. Is what
yeah,
gives it the character.
that's right.
And you use a lot of like repurposed items.
Mm.
And I was thinking about the difference between say a tin that you get from an antique shop versus something brand new. It wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't.
It just doesn't work.
No, it
So
doesn't.
you need to have that not just the texture, but I think if the texture was even artificial, it still wouldn't work either.
No,
There's something
I
about
quite
it being
agree.
used, being worn.
Yeah, and it's. I think because those items in themselves have got character,
Yeah.
and in much the same way as a dirty laneway, for example.
Mm.
And I think that's what I like about those things. I can't even remember the point where my brain changed and wanted to start using vintage items and old recycled bits and pieces. Because initially I just started off putting, like little toys, like tiny little figurines and toys and things in, holes in the wall. But it morphed into using these sort of vintage items, and I love that because it's giving those items a whole new life and a new
Yeah.
purpose.
And that was like sort
And
of like a transition from being a street artist
yeah,
so you went from doing these street installations to
Mm.
then exhibiting, right?
yeah,
And I guess it would have
yeah,
been in that transition when you started collecting
yeah.
objects and
I
then
think it
using
was.
them.
Yeah, I think it was. It's actually really interesting to look back at that, because I remember the first day. So this is like a bit of a um, sidestep, but because I'd only been working in the streets for a short time before I got my first studio, I never would have thought I'd become an artist or that I'd be invited to join a studio. That just wasn't something I saw happening for me, because I wasn't taking it seriously, I guess. I was just mucking around and amusing myself. And then when Doyle from Blender Studios, he messaged me one day and said, "Hey, Punk, there's a studio here for you if you want it." And I had been a follower of Blender, like I held them up in high esteem. And I got the message and I looked at the message and thought, oh, he sent this to the wrong person and he doesn't realise he sent it to me. So I responded to him and said, "Oh, hey Doyle, I think you've sent this message to the wrong person," because I hadn't taken myself seriously. I was just thinking, oh, he surely can't mean me. Anyway, he was like, "No, Punk, I've sent it to the right person." And anyway, so long story short, moved into the studio, and I remember on my first day after my husband and I had set it up and it all looked lovely and I was all excited. And I remember sitting down at the desk and then just sitting there and then turning to Carl, my husband, and said, "What do I do now?" Like I really hadn't thought about what do I actually do, because I was so used to doing stupid stuff on the street, and it felt like I now had to be more serious about it.
An artist.
Yeah, and I think that's when I started buying the or searching for all the vintage items and little cigar boxes and tins and things like that.
Which was a bit of a natural progression because, I recall you having said that was a passion of yours before you got into this as well.
Yeah.
So you're just bringing all these things together, or
Yeah.
your past passions.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because I didn't know that I was doing that at the time.
Yeah.
It's only in retrospect I think, oh, they're all connected, those things. Because I had, in my 20s, I had a secondhand dealer's license. And because I was really addicted to garage sales. And back when we had, you'd get the paper and there'd be a list of 20 garage sales and I'd go around in my Beetle and, hunt down all of this stuff. And then because I needed to then move that stuff on because I was collecting so much crap, or not crap, they were beautiful little things that I was collecting, but I then had a stall at Camberwell Market and started selling stuff for a profit, but not much of a profit, just a little. And that just kept me kind of going so I could keep garage sailing every weekend. And, yeah, I used to love all of those older things then. Very early Australiana and, I ended up kind of having a bit of knowledge about antiques and things in those days. So it's kind of nice to then fall back into
Bring
that.
it back in.
Yeah.
I spoke with another artist a couple of weeks ago, Elise Marchianti, and she said something to me that just, as soon as she said it, it kind of put me in a bit of a headspin. She, I think it was her quote was, "The dots connect backwards."
Oh, yeah, wow.
And when I thought of that, it kind of just like, it was a moment where I was getting all these flashbacks.
Yeah.
And trying to then connect all these dots backwards of
Yeah.
everything that's happened and how I've arrived at this point. So there are a lot of things that you do in your life, especially like in your 20s, that seem to be completely unrelated to everything, but somehow it all comes back full circle. And it's just this combination of different experiences, because even with your background in writing, because the work that you do, it's a visual narrative.
Yeah.
There essentially is like a little snapshot, but there's a whole world that's happening there, and a whole story, a whole narrative, and then you bring in the pun, you bring in the antiques, and it's just a whole combination of the Tinky that has lived this life for the last, have 50-something years, or like the journey, the creative journey started off well before you ever decided to be an artist. Because how long ago was this? What was it? Maybe about 10-ish something years ago.
10 years this year it will be.
10 years, but it actually started well before that.
Yeah.
And you probably didn't even realize.
I didn't until right now. It's funny, isn't it? Like I don't know whether I don't have self-awareness like that, because it's so true.
Well, I mean, you probably don't, right? Because like at the moment, you never really think, I'm collecting these antique cigar boxes, and one day I'm just gonna start creating these little miniatures in there that are going to be punny.
Yeah,
like you're not thinking that.
No,
at the time.
exactly not. No, it's so it has evolved very naturally.
Yeah.
I think the sense of comedy or humour and
back to your dad introducing you to Peter Sellers.
Yeah, and the other thing, so Peter Sellers and there was a cartoonist from America, Gary Larson, and I think you can still get his stuff, but he did. There were a lot of greeting cards and books. As a teenager, they really resonated with me because I was so silly. And similarly, there was like he would draw a cartoon of something really crazy.
Yeah, his would just be on a single frame.
Yeah, and then just a comment.
Just a comment, that
was
like
the narrative.
Yeah,
and always utterly hilarious. Like a really overweight lady,
some sort of social commentary,
pinning a sign up on a telegraph pole saying "lost dog," and then walking away, and then the dog's stuck in her butt crack. It's just like, oh God, that's funny, and yet so simple.
Yeah, and how many of those would you have read and it's just been banked?
Well, I wonder. I mean, it must be, that must have influenced me in some way. I don't know. I don't want to say copied because I didn't think of that, while I was coming up with these ideas, but it must be etched into my brain.
For sure. I've thought about doing the research and looking at your work, trying to figure out how we appreciate what it is that you do, and wanting to understand the difference between, because back to what we were saying about your street work, your street installations versus the gallery work, it's the same artist, but with your work, context matters a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like you look at some of how street art, traditional street art being just graffiti on a wall, it's almost like the tattoo, a tattoo of the city, right? Like it's leaving a mark.
That's nice.
That it's, I mean, that's kind of what I liken it to, where you could have clean skin or it could be marked with some artwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gives it that character, like intentionally giving it some sort of story and some character. But then you put it in a gallery space, the context is completely different.
Yeah.
So how your work is seen in the city, because I think part of the appeal of your work is the accidental discovery of it.
That's right.
Rather than it being put on a pedestal and, just like a little miniature, literally on a plinth.
Yeah.
Has completely different context to stumbling upon it.
It totally does. But you know what? I wonder if, like something you said earlier about it draws us in, maybe it's just people get a little bit, they forget they're in a gallery, they forget they're looking through a glass dome, but they're maybe drawn in by the scene and what's happening there. So maybe the context is definitely different for sure, but maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe people are just drawn to try to work out what's going on in this scene and, maybe having a giggle at the narrative. And I don't know how it's worked, but it has, and I'm really grateful for that. But, because they are so different. And I do like the fact that when you're in a laneway or the street or whatever else, it is accidental. You're not going in there to expect to find something like that. I think that's just a different type of joy that it might bring, because it's like you've stumbled on something that's just for you.
Yeah.
Whereas in a gallery, you're sort of perhaps already aware of my work, and so you're going there intentionally to see it.
I think that element of surprise.
Different audiences maybe, Yeah,
I mean a different audience or just a different context changes up how we perceive it.
And I did wonder, actually, the first exhibition I think I had, I never in a million years would have thought my stuff would end up in in a gallery. That was just so far from my mind. But I did wonder how it would go because it's so different, but it has worked out.
I wonder if the context, if it was changed up and you could almost have your work hidden
in a gallery.
In galleries as well. Just in obscure places.
Yeah. Well, I did really cheekily. This is so cheeky, but everyone loves Mona in Hobart, and
okay.
I snuck a piece. I snuck a piece in there, and I had wanted to do that for a long time, and I figured, they're so out there in what they're doing anyway. They could hardly punish me for it, I was thinking, because, isn't that what they want? They want kind of, I don't know, something bit different, a bit of guerrilla artwork, why not?
Yeah.
But the lengths I went to, because I'm such a scaredy cat of being caught.
Is this actually inside the gallery or just around the premises?
No, inside.
Oh, nice.
I know, inside. But I went in and I had Carl and I booked tickets to go to Hobart specifically to do this. And
go bombing.
Yeah, and then I went. I wrapped up the artwork. It was a glow mesh purse with an artwork in it. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. And I wrapped it up like it was a gift. Put it in a box. Gift wrap the box. Put it in my bag, and I thought, just in case, because I couldn't remember if there was security or if you had to go through, if they checked bags. And so I had this whole story lined up in my head that, if anyone looked in my bag and asked what this was or why I was bringing a parcel in, I was going to say, it's my husband's birthday. I'm going to give him this gift when we're in the gallery or having lunch or something. So I had this whole story planned out. Anyway, we get there and, of course, no one gives a damn. So you just walk through with your ticket. And I was so excited about doing it. But, of course, there are, cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
And also probably cameras that don't look like cameras. So, you can just see things throughout the roof and throughout the ceiling and you know that you're being watched. So I was trying to be very careful but also respect the space I was in. Like I didn't want to just, I was trying to be respectful as well anyway. And then we decided that putting it in the toilets was probably the safest way of...
No cameras.
No cameras, but I think there were.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
I think, because I don't know how else, the way this happened was I popped it on, they were, unisex bathrooms that you could have your own sort of little toilet area and lock the door, and that's when I unwrapped everything. And then I came out and put it on the bathroom sink area. And I had a little plaque for it and everything and put it down there. Stupidly, I was taking photos and then I decided, maybe I should take video of me walking in and putting it, just, taking a photo of it. And, but I must have done that a couple of times. And so there would have been cameras that would have just had me going in and out with it, filming something, I don't know. Anyway, I think it lasted about an hour and a half. 2 hours because we went back in and checked and when it finally had gone we were like, oh well, at least it disappeared. And then we were like, oh well, that's okay, look, it got an hour and a half in there. And I thought, it'll be in a bin somewhere, someone's taken it and that's fine. And anyway, a couple of hours later when we actually left Mona and we were out in the forecourt, a girl who worked there came up to us and said, oh, are you the person that put the artwork in the toilets? And I went bright red and was like, what do you mean? Yes. How did you know it was me? And she didn't say how she knew. And she just said, oh, we really love it and we've taken it into the staff rec room, like the staff room. And I was like, that's awesome. I'm so glad. So does that mean I can say I've got an artwork in mine?
Technically, yeah.
But, it was a bit of a laugh. So I don't know how they knew it was me because I hadn't identified myself in any other way. Yeah.
Oh, cameras
it was pretty funny. Cameras.
They're probably watching you the whole time. It's like, she's up to something.
That's right. I know. I love it. So anyway.
You must have so many of these stories of just trying to be coy with your installations.
Yeah, I look, and I'm so stupid. I think I'm doing something coy, and it's probably really glaringly obvious that I'm doing something. I do remember doing an artwork in a laneway in Ballarat. It was for the Biennale a few years ago, and a man drove down the laneway in his car and wound down his window because all he would have seen was me sitting on the ground and staring at a wall. Right. So from his perspective, it would have looked really odd. And anyway, but, and I was making something and he stopped. He was lovely and he came up and he said, oh, I just want to check you're okay. And I said, yeah, do you need any help or anything? And I said, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm actually just, I had to point out. So I'm just doing a little artwork in this hole in the wall, but thank you so much for checking in. So that was kind of funny.
I've heard you talk about how a lot of the artwork that you do on the streets don't last very long. And it was so disappointing to hear that. And like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah.
It's like, just can't you just leave it and appreciate it for what it is?
Yeah, look, I think initially, it used to be so exciting to do the street artworks. And then when they started disappearing quickly, I used to say, oh, no, street art's ephemeral and, I just put it in and walk away and it's not mine anymore. And I used to say that all the time. But, yeah, I think over time I'd be lying if I said it didn't bother me because I do put a lot of effort into it and it's also at my own expense too that I'm doing it. So those miniatures are not cheap. But also, I mean, I get joy out of doing it and I love it. But I also want other people to get the surprise.
Yeah.
Like I love that other people can get a little moment of joy from it. So then if it disappears really quickly, it's not like someone can steal it and take it home because it's all glued.
It was damage it.
It's just they break and then, yeah. So I try not to take it personally, but, it's annoying because it's like, oh, I just did that,
Yeah,
It's not there anymore.
It's something that you're leaving a mark on a public space that's there for the public to appreciate. That's the idea of street art. And I love that you fit within that category of being a street artist.
I know,
and
it's
probably even
amazing.
more so than a graffiti artist because it's almost, theirs is transferable anywhere, their skill set, but yours really requires the street for it to have that same sort of resonance.
Yeah.
It doesn't work the same not in the street.
Yeah.
You need to have that little nook within the broken brick wall.
That's what's lovable about it, I guess.
Yeah, just adding that little bit of character.
Yeah.
And it's it's disappointing that we can't just leave it and leave it for what it is and appreciate it for what it is.
I wish it could stay. Even if it's just a week or two, it doesn't have to be forever, but more than 24 hours would be nice. I did something recently in Geelong with all my street art friends. We went down there to do some street art together, and I did a piece that was using a dart, like a bullseye type dart, and everything was left except for the dart. Like the next morning, the dart had disappeared. But it was really odd.
Oh.
Like, it's like, oh, okay. So I replaced it. I had a spare dart. So I glued another one in place. And then the next morning, the dart had gone again. So it's like, I'm just going to have to leave it alone now. Oh. Just leave it. I did have a third dart, but I was like, nah, just leave
What's
it.
the point?
What's the point?
I wonder with because like as you're creating more pieces and you're developing, I guess, a bit of a name for yourself within the community, then there's probably less of a chance of your work even lasting, right? Like,
I think that's what's happening.
right, it would be like a Banksy piece, for example, right, where once it's up there, then it'll get framed and blocked off, and then it takes that joy out of that discovery.
Yeah,
part
that's
of it
right.
as well.
If only my work could fetch $1 million at Sotheby's.
Maybe one day. Maybe it'll be some like. Have you seen? I mean, you'll
like
be
Banksy. Yeah.
Oh well, look, he has definitely set street art
I
off
know,
on a different
it's
kind
amazing,
of trajectory,
isn't it? Yeah.
and like just then having that element of like the discovery, like laced into his work, and then much like yours as well, because a lot of his stuff is just he has his his big grandiose type pieces, but a lot of it is just like. What's that? Yeah, like kind of tucked away.
Imagine finding one of his. That would just be incredible.
But you wouldn't even know.
No.
You wouldn't even know if it was.
Well, you wouldn't, would you?
genuinely.
You'd probably assume it's not, actually.
Yeah, and it could just be in some random alleyway anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And it's that. I think it's just that discovery that makes it so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Because you get it's electric when you find something like that. I mean... Well, not a Banksy because I haven't. Oh no, we've got 2 little Banksy rats in Melbourne still.
I think there's. I can't remember where did I see it? And then there was one that's been. Is it in?
There was one
Collingwood, the one that's got the perspex.
Okay, that must have been maybe in Brunswick Street. Would it be?
I think that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then the 2 in what's it called? Like around the corner from ACDC Lane. Yeah, the 2 on a wall.
They're the rat ones.
They're amazing. And you know what I love about that so much is that people have left them alone. Like there's graffiti and stuff all around them, but they haven't gone into the rats at all, which is really like such respect.
So maybe the thing is that you have to really build your profile way up there.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but yeah.
So with the antique, the collecting, and you do a lot of work with. You're still doing the work with Carey Grammar.
Yeah, I am.
That repurposing products
Yeah.
and giving them new life. I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
That big, what was it, Project X from
Yeah,
Hub? Is that what it's called?
it's so.
Yeah, tell us about that.
I haven't really talked about this much. Don't think I've even put it on Instagram or anything like that. Because in a way, it's still a little bit surreal because it's through Harvard. And they have a research arm called Project Zero.
Oh, Project Zero.
Yeah, and they basically trial education projects around the world, and they came up with this transformative repair project that they wanted to trial in Australia, and they selected 2 schools in Victoria, Carey Grammar being one and another one in Geelong, to roll out transformative repair, and that is for Year 7s, and to introduce this idea of repurposing something broken, old, something that has no sort of typical purpose anymore, something that you'd throw away, take to the tip, whatever else, and then incorporate that into creating an artwork, and then based off my artwork. So then it was such an honour, to be asked to do that, and that was about 4 years ago. Yeah, so that's really lovely. So I go there twice a year and help with this project for Year 7s.
It's always revolved around creating artwork.
Yeah.
And not something that necessarily functional. It's just
artwork.
Artwork.
And so it's all about giving something new life, something that we would ordinarily. So it's basically, and also, the impact it has on the environment. So there's all the environmental impact of recycling,
Of course.
And reusing, but the repurposing and giving something a new life. And also they're really good. They plan it out, so they have lessons that I'm not part of, where they plan out what they want to do, what the object is they're going to bring in to use, and then the story behind it, which I love that because, Year 7s are 13 years old, and these kids have just got unending creativity that I think somehow we put boundaries on ourselves as we get older.
Yeah.
But they just let it flow, and they're amazing. These artworks are just fantastic. And it's like there's nothing they can't do. They just go for it and create these amazing things. And the last time I was there, late last year, there was a couple of girls that did this artwork, and I was kind of secretly so overjoyed and outwardly horrified because she'd put some sort of animal that had broken out of a zoo and had attacked all these visitors and people, and she had a glass dome over it, and she'd splattered blood all over the dome, and there was blood on the grass and, dead people in the lion's mouth, and I just remember thinking, what are her parents going to say?
Yeah, you got to look out for those ones.
Really, and am I to blame for this? It was all her idea, but obviously inspired by some of the dodgy things I'd created in my past.
That's the age where, and like what you were saying, that as you get older, our imagination starts to shrink. We start putting labels and limitations on things. And I love the idea where you're tapping into this particular age group.
Yeah.
They can either start to flourish or start to restrict.
Yeah.
And to give them opportunities to take something and to relinquish the labels and the predefinitions that we have of what this thing is.
That's right.
And saying, this is now nothing, make it something. Yeah. Whatever it is that you want. Yeah. And just go from there. And then it really ties back into the way that you create your work in and of itself, where you're able to, when you're repurposing something, you're not only just giving it new life, but you're giving the ability, you're giving it the opportunity to be anything.
Yeah, that's right. And almost in a way to shine again.
Yeah.
To exist again.
Or more so.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Because before it was a
functional object.
A functional object. Now it's a piece of art that's going to be appreciated and seen in a different way.
Yeah.
Whether it be like, let's just say a little tin, you would look at the rust and the texture on it, and be
Yeah.
like, wow, look how beautiful that is. Like, look at the time that it has spent
Yeah.
to wear down. What
Yeah.
are the stories that this thing is holding onto?
Yeah.
You know, and the piece that you had with the roller skate,
Yeah.
right? Like, it was a roller skate that, like, it was functional, but now it is a vessel
Yeah.
for another piece of art.
Yeah.
Where once it was busted up, like, it's gone.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve its
That's
purpose
right.
anymore.
And now it's like, yeah, they can sit on someone's, I don't know, plinth at home as a really fun object, artwork. That it's no longer just a roller skate. It's yeah.
And it really does, like, and that's something that I really appreciate from your work, is that it really pulls you into it, and it gets you to look at it and to think about things in a way that we otherwise wouldn't, right? Like we were saying before, just day to day, we don't go around and observing the space that we're in.
Yeah.
But with this, when it's miniaturized and it's shrunken down, we just feel compelled to try to understand it better.
Yeah.
And when you're creating a narrative around it, it really gets me thinking as well, like, yours is just a snapshot of a particular moment. And then you think, what happened just before that?
Yeah.
Right? And then what's going to happen right after that?
Yeah.
Like, it's a dire situation.
Yes.
Right? Like, how do they get themselves
I love
involved
that.
in this situation?
Yeah.
And how are they going to get themselves out of it?
Yeah.
And you just run with all these stories
Oh
going
my
through
gosh,
your
I
head.
love that. I'm so happy to hear that, because that's what I do. That's how I think about it. It's like, oh, you know, yeah, what happened in the lead up, and like, you know, like
Because you give them names as well. You're giving the characters
I
names.
love finding the names. And sometimes I'll just, like, I've got a list of names I love, but sometimes the name, you know, I just come up with a name because it fits that particular character. And a lot of them are sort of older names, I suppose. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I do love that whole idea that there was something going on before and something now that has to happen after the calamity that has ensued.
And it's almost melancholy that we're never going to know.
No.
Right? Like, 'cause you create this world that we get sucked into, and it's
a part story. It's it's just
Do you have any that work in a
snippet.
series?
No, I've never done that.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Would we be it'd be interesting. I love a whole narrative. And I was speaking with Jess Wheeler. He is a creative director in advertising, and we got talking about, do you remember those old Nescafe commercials?
They were fantastic.
They
weren't
were,
they?
right? And it wasn't even about
no.
Nescafe. It was
No, it
about
wasn't.
the people.
It was. They were so clever.
Yeah. And like, it was just
That's
people
right.
getting on with people's lives, and just
Yeah.
everything that encompasses it. And it just so happens that they were drinking Nescafe, right?
Yes,
That was
that's
just the thing that
right.
tied it all together.
But yeah, I know. And we got to go through their journey
Yeah.
or their love affair or whatever it was at the time.
And I wonder whether for yours it could be like a series that just sort of like unfolds as you traverse through the city.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that idea.
Or like even an exhibition.
A series of, oh my gosh, I love that.
And you walk through and you're
Yes.
discovering
Yeah.
their lives,
And they
the
all
turmoil.
link together.
Yeah.
Oh, watch this space now.
Or even, it could even just, if you can get really creative, work in a very circular way, how it ends leads it back to the start.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, I'd have to really put my thinking cap on for that.
Cool. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, it could be a collab.
All right.
Yeah, it was your idea, and I'll execute it.
You take the idea. It's yours. It's yours. I've
Thanks,
done my
that's
bit
fine.
now. It's
over to you.
just put my name down, Tinky and Wayne.
That's right.
It's like a group project
Oh my
where
God,
like
I love it. Yeah.
you do all the work and I'll just show up on the day.
Oh no, that's fun. Yeah, I'd love to do something like that. I've not thought of that before. I wonder if I'd have to use the same objects over and over to mimic it, like shoes or.
Oh, I can do whatever you want.
I saw one of the girls in the Carey project. She had used, I think it was a leather boot or like a really lovely old boot, And yeah, she was doing things to it that I'd never thought of myself.
Okay.
So, you know, these kids are really inspiring to me because, you know, I think she'd carved out windows and doors in the boot. So there was something else to look at in each window in the boot. So I just was like, oh my God, that's genius.
Yeah.
So clever.
There's a series on Netflix called Love, Death, Robots. I don't know if you caught that.
I haven't seen that one yet. No.
It's well, when I say series, it's not really a series. It's a collection of short stories done by different artists. So there's no connection to them. Similar to like how a Black Mirror, right?
Black Mirror, that was amazing.
Yeah, kind of like in a similar vein, but
Yeah.
not necessarily dark and morbid. It was just really cool stories done, and I think for the most part these are all CGI.
Yeah.
And there was one episode which I think you would love, where this couple buy a refrigerator, and then they notice in the freezer that there was a whole ecosystem and a life evolving in the time that they had it.
Oh wow!
So I'll send you the.
Please, yeah.
It's really cool.
Oh, definitely.
And it was that same fascination
Yeah.
of seeing a miniaturized world.
Yeah.
And they were watching it just evolve through time, like how we've gone through our human evolution.
Yeah.
And they were seeing it happen in real time, but in because it was miniaturized, it was sped up.
Yeah.
And it was just so. It was fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It was so fascinating just to see things in a small version. And it's just that miniaturized part of it. Whether or not it makes us feel almost godlike as well, just to see something small and vulnerable, that we have this power over it. Like,
well, I find it really interesting because, you know, it's adults that have the fascination with really small things as well as kids. And because it's adults, for example, buying my artworks, but when I get invited often to do sort of shows for galleries, like programs, it's aimed at children. And sometimes I think, oh, have you not seen my work? It's really, you know, there's nudity, there's murder, there's, you know, breaking of limbs, there's all sorts of things. But having said that, the kids, and especially with the narratives as well, the kids don't read the narrative and don't need to have the context. They just want the little people.
Yeah.
Whereas it's for the adults, I guess it's the little people and the scene, but it's the cheeky narrative that gets them across the line. Maybe, I don't know. I think it's the whole lot. I think that there is absolutely a fascination with things being miniaturized. Yeah.
But then when you add in the layer of the dark humor and the cheekiness, the cleverness, and how you're able to tell a story in such short form, take away the actual sculptural pieces.
Yeah.
But it's essentially a headline and a pun, and there's a whole world wrapped up in that. And I think that, I don't know, it could just be having little in it that helps the adult with the imagination and just getting that ball rolling.
Yeah.
Where kids they can make it up. You can just give them anything and they'll make
Yeah.
up a whole story.
Yeah.
But the adults need just a bit of a nudge, maybe it's a cue.
Yeah.
And it could be that whole, like, when I see it, like I was saying before, just that whole wondering what happened, how do they get into that position, and then afterwards. But I wouldn't have considered that if not for that little snapshot that you provided.
Oh,
So-
that's interesting.
So it could be that what you do is just
the storytelling,
or even
or just opening it up for people to
up.
then run with the story themselves.
maybe that's what it is that appeals to the adults, and having that bit of humor, it just makes it just that all the more enticing. That it just gives it that different kind of appeal.
I like that it's not taking myself too seriously either in creating these. So for a long time, you know, I had that imposter syndrome that many people experience, well, maybe many women experience.
I think everyone has it.
Do you think everyone?
Everyone has it. To some degree, and if you don't, then you should probably Well, no, I'll take that back. I was going to say that if you don't, then you should probably have a good hard think about why you don't. Is there some sort of ego part of you? But then I also think that none of us should be carrying that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, no, you're right. I know, I totally see where you're going to go with that too. But no, you're right. It's awful because it can hold you back, and also because you want to stay humble about what you do. I think that's really important as an artist, and not to get caught up in too much ego. But it's also important to have confidence in what you're doing and to believe in what you're doing and to understand and accept that some people will like it, other people won't. Some people love it, other people won't rate it at all, and all of that is fine. But with the imposter syndrome, I would often just sort of be in groups and think, what am I doing in here? Like, how am I? I've snuck in under the radar. I shouldn't be with these people, especially in my early days in Blender. I was just like, because I was around artists that I'd admired and respected from afar without knowing them. And now I was kind of in groups with them and hanging out and whatever else. And it was really weird for my brain to contemplate, well, how did I get here? And I haven't studied art and I'm cheating and, all of that now, sort of going on in my brain. It's kind of unhealthy because then you sort of think, well, I don't deserve to be here. Yeah. And that's not true. You're still, if people are enjoying what you do, you deserve to be there. That's okay. Yeah. But
part of your work is to kind of like fly under the radar and to not be the loudest person in the room. Yours is meant to be hidden and tucked away.
Yeah.
So that is part of the appeal of your work. So the fact that you came into the scene and felt that, it's like, well, that's sort of how it was.
Yeah.
So that's more of a strength of yours, right? That's something that you should probably lean into. And of course it's hard. It's hard because you're rubbing shoulders with these people that you've admired. And I mean, doing this podcast, that's all it has been for me. It's reaching out to people and speaking with people that I admire from afar and then sitting down and having conversations with them like this.
Yeah.
And getting to pick their brain on it. It's it does humble you a lot, when you're in a group of people and your peers that you admire, but they're all feeling the same thing.
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And the ones that are higher up,
sort of forget other people might be feeling the same.
Absolutely. And the people that are higher up, the people that have, I guess, progressed further along the way for whatever reason it may be, they no longer, they don't have the energy to think little of anyone else. They just don't.
Yeah.
Right? They're because that's part of, I think, the progression as a person or as an artist, that the more you go along and discover your value and how you play into everything, then the less you care about other people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
or
true.
At the very lot, the less that you care of other people, the less
you worry about whether you fit in or not.
Or
your place in
you just
in
feel
it all.
You feel more secure within your place, and you don't put as much weight on anything else that opposes that, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting, like 10 years down the line, it will still sneak in sometimes. Like, for example, there is an amazing exhibition on at the moment called The Outsiders. I don't know whether you've seen it yet. Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. We talked about that.
Yeah.
And I have, one or two pieces in there, and I often, I don't know, I don't know how I got there. Like, I don't know how I got into that.
Yeah.
Because of the caliber of the artists in there. Yeah, sometimes I think, oh, God, I don't know how that happened. But then I think,
You're in the same exhibition as Banksy.
Yeah. Well, that to me is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
And I'm so grateful. Like, I'm so happy.
It's ridiculous, but it's
it
happening.
Is ridiculous.
It's real.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's wonderful. But I do sort of go, well, I don't know how that happened, but I just have to enjoy that moment of going, well, this is where it is, and it's really, truly wonderful. So
isn't it awesome though?
yeah.
To feel that way, but then to be at that level at the same time, and just to have that counterbalance of constantly feeling. I mean, like, it could also just be a way for you to wanting to improve as well, and
Yeah,
using
that
that
is
as
true.
fuel
Yeah, that is
to
true.
improve. But then
Yeah.
at the same time, you're already there. You're already at that level because it is such a high caliber exhibition, and it's
Yeah, it
curated
is. And
by a couple that absolutely know what they're
oh
doing
yes.
as well.
Yeah,
So there's no
absolutely.
mistaking
Yeah.
of who should be in that space.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it couldn't have been by accident because I don't think that Sandrew they don't know what's going on. They've
Yeah.
got their
Yeah.
their finger on the pulse.
Yeah. That was actually like the greatest honour to have a work collected by them. And I remember when
How
it
cool is
happened,
that?
and it was perhaps 5 years ago, because it was the security camera with a scene inside it that was at Can't Do Tomorrow, which was an amazing exhibition installation in a building in Kensington. It was incredible, and it was just before lockdown. And so it was really me 5 years into doing art, and then to have that collected by Sandrew. I actually remember I was in tears. I was so overwhelmed by that because I knew who they were, and I'd met them a couple of times at that stage, but I wouldn't have thought I was on their radar in any way, and I might not have been, but they saw the camera and liked it and bought that, and yeah, I just remember thinking, oh, nothing greater than this will ever happen to me in my art life. Like, this is it. Nothing else bigger than that will ever happen. Like,
It's a big milestone.
It was such a big thing for me to have that happen. Yeah.
Why would you think that it can't get bigger than that?
I don't know. I just thought, well, because they're so well known and they're really, they're so lovely and very supportive of the industry and lots of fun and all of those things. I don't know. I just thought, I feel like I've been collected by people who nothing will ever beat that. I don't know why. I still think that.
Well, mate, I mean, like, the floor is now elevated,
Yeah.
right? So if the floor has been lifted, then I guess, like, so's the ceiling.
Yeah, true. But I don't know who else
But
would beat them.
go back to what we were saying about your piece, and part of the an ingredient of yours is how it's hidden. Is I walked through Outsiders and I missed your piece.
I love that though, because I guess it's meant to be hidden in the camera. So the camera's meant to look like a real security camera.
Yeah, it is.
And so, and I the couple of times, or 3 or 4 times I've been there, I have seen people just walk past it because, and which is fine, because it is something hidden in plain sight.
Just it probably more speaks to how observant I am of my environment, and maybe something.
Well,
I
a
need
lot
to
of
pay.
people, I think,
Yeah, I've got to pay more attention to it. I should have questioned why is there a security camera up there.
Well, I think too, because because of the caliber of art that's in there,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't necessarily question why there's a security camera.
Or one that looks like a prop.
Yeah.
More of a prop security camera.
Yeah, and I'd love to know what type of security camera it was, because Carl found it in an antique shop, and he said, "Do you think you could use this?" And because it's quite a long camera, and the whole top of it just flips over. And then you've got this wonderful empty cavity that's just like begging for a scene, in there. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But
It's limitless, right? What you can create.
Yeah.
And so when you're asked like, can you create something with this? The answer is always absolutely yes.
yeah,
And
that's
it's just
right.
a matter of then just putting your mind to it and trying to see what pun you can come out with
Yeah,
this.
because you've got to relate it to the scene, and the pun has to relate to the object. And so there's a lot of and I'll know instantly if I see an item. I'll know absolutely as soon as I clap eyes on it that whether I can use it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's not always an absolute yes.
No. Well, no,
Oh.
not really. I mean, I could, but I suppose it's whether or not I feel connected to the thing. Like I recently bought an old meat grinder. You know, the ones that kind of bolt onto your kitchen tap, and you know, it's got this kind of big long neck and a handle, and you put your meat in it and it grinds it. And I'm dying to do something with that because I think, you know, obviously we can do something really fun with someone going through the grinder. Yeah, but that's going to be a tricky one to work with only because it's got to bolt on to something. So I hesitated with it because it's like, oh, how am I going to do it? But it's too funny not to.
So if you have to find, you got to resonate with the piece.
Yeah.
So first you start with resonating with it, and talk me through the process then. How does, is it a step-by-step process?
It is in that, well, there's kind of two ways I do it. So either I'll either find a vintage object that really speaks to me, and I look at it and think, okay, if I can find, let's say, miniatures that are doing this particular action, then I can do a scene with those in this, and then I might in my mind sort of like have a little storyline going. This all happens really quickly too in my mind. So it's like bang, 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 bang. Yes, I'll grab that. Or sometimes I'll find the miniatures and I think, oh, that they are hilarious. If I can find a particular blah object like a teacup or I don't know, or a shoe or whatever, then I can create a scene with these doing that in this object. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And then it's just carting it all home and starting. Like I have a book and I start writing puns and I think of play on, you know, words that I can use as a play on word. And so I'll have a page dedicated to this particular artwork and how it formulates from there.
Right.
Yeah, just in the written form, not pictures or drawings of what it's going to look like. It's all about the story.
Yep, the idea.
First, yeah.
Because they haven't always been punny, right?
No, they didn't start that way.
No.
And again, another thing, I can't quite remember when the punniness came into it.
I mean, they had a bit of, they were whimsical.
Yeah.
They were playful.
Yeah.
To the point where I remember you've spoken of the first piece that you did. I love that story. Actually, can you tell us that story?
Yes.
The big bird one.
All right. Thank you. So I woke up. So this is before I'd done anything on the street. I'd been following street art just because I was interested and I loved the murals and I loved the stencils and the little pieces and, you know, all the things that were going on in Melbourne. And so Carl and I would always just troop into the city and just take ourselves around the laneways. And I got to know styles of artists and I was photographing street art all the time. And so I had an interest in street art. And then one day I woke up one Sunday and said to Carl, look, you know, this is a bit weird. I don't know why, but I have this compulsion. We have to go to a market and I need to buy some things to put up in a laneway somewhere. And bless him, he just went, okay, all right. And we went to a trash and treasure market in Frankston, actually, because we live not far from there. And I didn't even know what I was looking for. Sorry. I wanted toy soldiers. I knew that, but I didn't know what the other thing was So I walk into the market, and the second stall I saw was a woman that had vintage toy soldiers in a jar. So I bought them straight away, and I thought, oh, this is a sign. And then I kept going through the market until I found something that I knew would work with the toy soldiers, but I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew it would appear and I would know it was the thing. Anyway, I found a little big bird about that big, and it was just a silly looking. He had a goofy look on his face, and he had his arms out like that. So it looked like he was kind of surprised. And I thought, that's it. The toy soldiers will be holding up Big Bird. And anyway, I said to Carl, okay, now we have to drive to Collingwood and we'll find a laneway, and I just want to put it up in the street somehow. I want to glue it up together with the scene. And I did that, and we found a laneway near Backwards Gallery. And I found a windowsill, and I glued Big Bird to it with his hands out, and then all the toy soldiers kind of creeping up and pointing their guns at him and everything. Anyway, I thought it was funny just for me. I just did it for myself. I didn't do it for anyone else. It was just, I thought, oh, that's really, really fun, you know. And, and then I think someone discovered it. Street art photographer found it, photographed it, and then I think posted it and said, oh, does anyone know who's did this or whatever? And it happened to be, I was following that photographer. And I was so gobsmacked that someone had seen it, photographed it, and then was wondering who did it. So I fessed up to it. And then I think because I knew that people had enjoyed that, I just kept doing it. And I was doing it for me, like, because I was amusing myself. And then, but it was interesting, people putting their own take on that Big Bird and kind of creating their own story behind it about, you know, America and you know, gun-toting Americans and, you know, holding up a big bird and just the, you know, I don't know, people just started creating their own stories behind what it meant and assumed that's what it meant for me.
Yeah.
Where it was entirely not the case, but I also liked that it got people thinking about what it meant, even though it didn't mean anything.
We like to do that, right? Like we like to, because it just on face value, you will look at that and like, what is this?
Yeah.
And when it's confusing, we're like, let's make it less confusing.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's make this make sense, just so I don't have to feel this thing scratching in the back of my brain. Like, what the hell was this? What was this about? I've got to work it out.
Yeah,
and give it meaning.
But isn't it interesting though that we feel like we have to give it meaning?
Yeah,
and it can't just be as it was for me.
Yeah.
Big Bird being held up by toy soldiers. Like, you know, it didn't have to mean anything. And similarly, so that's why I often say Big Bird changed my life, because he really did. Like, and so now I just love Big Bird so much for that reason. So he's popped into a few artworks for that reason. I love him.
I think that's a great story. It's just how the randomness of it, and so much that you can't explain. There's the feeling compelled to do something like that.
Oh, it was weird. I can't explain it. I don't know to this day why that happened. It was obviously meant to be.
And how?
But I just don't know where that came from. It was absolutely a compulsion that morning.
Just that morning.
That morning, and it was like I was driven. Now I should disclaimer. I do have bipolar type 2.
Yep.
And
that would have maybe played part of that?
It would have, because what would happen for me, it was always not a negative thing for me. Oh, I didn't know I had it for most of my life. I don't think I got diagnosed till my mid-40s, but I just thought I was an overly enthusiastic person. So I'd kind of find something I really loved and then just fixate on it. And but it was always fun. Like, it was never negative. It was just, oh, this is awesome. I'm just going to keep doing it. And so I think, there must have been something in me that I don't know. Well, I wanted to do something to contribute maybe to
Who knows?
the street art.
The dots connect backwards,
Yeah,
right?
the dots connect backwards.
And all of a sudden, all those ideas, ping, just hit this crossroad.
Yeah.
And then you woke up one morning and then that bipolar just hit.
Yeah, that's right. Thank God for bipolar. For me, anyway.
And
it was the less,
everything
less
just
troubling one.
Everything just coalesced into this one particular moment. And
and then it literally went from there. I mean, crazy. I don't know. I can't explain it, but I'm very grateful.
So you would even draw a line in the sand saying that before that moment, you wouldn't have identified yourself as an artist.
God, no. Oh my God. I didn't even for while I was doing it in a studio. I was just like, oh no, I'm just faking. I'm just faking. I don't know. No, I wouldn't have identified myself as an artist not in the slightest. I mean, I'd always been creative. Like I've always had a passion, like I was making jewellery for a long time and selling that in stores and that sort of thing. Writing, obviously, ex journo. So I've had a creative brain, but again, didn't know that. I just didn't. I was not self-aware enough to go, I'm a creative person. Just not at all. Somebody pointed out to me, in fact, that do you think your storylines are connected to the fact that you're a journalist and you're telling stories? And it was like a revelation. It's like, oh, yes, of course. But
absolutely.
Should be really obvious to me, but it wasn't at all. Yeah.
I guess in the moments
starter.
as you're doing it, you're not really figuring out how it plays into the bigger picture of things.
Just doing it.
You're just doing it.
Just doing it. Yeah.
And then when you give yourself an opportunity, and I think at any moment when you just stop and want to give yourself a bit of a retrospective look back on everything, you're like, oh, I guess it just kind of makes sense now.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? I like that. I like that in a way.
That the seemingly randomness of things.
I wonder if that I feel like one of those miniature characters that I'm just bumbling along and things happen. Good things happen to me for some reason.
I guess we just are, right? Like, I wonder that if we want to look at like a whole narrative, if you want to look at life as a narrative, and if we knew what the ending was, would we be continuing on doing what we're doing in the same way?
Yeah.
Or is it just the fact that we don't know is why we do what it is that we do? Like if let's just say that 20 years ago, if you knew that in your 50s you were going to be an artist,
oh my gosh,
would you have believed it?
No.
And then would you have done anything about it?
No.
Right? Yeah.
No.
So it's maybe just not knowing is how we get to that point.
Yeah, that's right. And I've never been someone that's had a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan. I have literally just existed day to day, week to week, and done the things I've wanted to do, whether it's travel or, spend time with whoever I want to spend time with. Like, I've never planned anything out. Same with career. Never. I've literally, I feel like I've fallen into things all my life, and that those things have worked out for me. So maybe it's a bit of, it's not, I mean, I know certainly success comes from planning as well, but just for me, I've never done that, which is, I'm just lucky, I think, that I've kind of fallen into the right jobs and the right, the right friendships, the right relationship, the right
or maybe you've just have been kind of somewhat planning, but without realising you've been planning as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I just wonder though, because what we were saying earlier about, with work and that facade of job security, that we feel as though that like full-time work, we feel safer, but we still have no idea what's going to happen.
No.
In that sense. So it could be just you relinquishing that sense of that safety and just kind of lent into the whole anything can happen.
Yeah.
And kind of just moved through and meandered life through that way.
Yeah.
I know. It's more interesting.
It is more interesting. And I mean, honestly, the weirdest things happen. The weirdest things happen, and I then look back and go, I don't even know how that happened. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I think I did an artwork. It was a commission. It was an artwork of someone being crushed by a disco ball, a mirror ball, on the dance floor, and there was a pun around that and everything. Anyway, I posted it as I do to Instagram, and I must have chosen "Murder on the Dance Floor" as the well. I did choose that as the background music. Yeah, Sophie Ellis Bextor. And within like a day, she direct messaged me.
Oh, cool.
and said, "Oh, I love what you do. This is amazing. I love, this." And I remember getting the message, and I was so excited. I screamed out loud, and Carl got really annoyed at me because I'd screamed in his ear by kind of like, "Rah." And anyway, I said, "Sophie Ellis Bextor's just DM'd me." Anyway, I thought I better stay cool and not kind of, overly fangirl. And I messaged back and said, "Oh, thank you so much. That's really lovely." And I didn't go on. I just sent that message. And then she messaged back and, and I'm like, I'm having a conversation with Sophie Ellis Bextor.
Now she's a fan of yours.
It was so cool. Anyway, the weirdest thing, the person I had made the commission for, I told her what had happened, and then she said, "Well, this is weird. Sophie Ellis Bextor's coming to Melbourne in 2 weeks' time for a gig at NGV."
Oh.
And and I was like, "This is what? This is so wild, And so then I messaged her and said, "Hey, look, I believe you're coming to Melbourne. It's where I'm from, in 2 weeks. I'd love to gift you one of these if you would like it, but please don't feel like you have to say yes. Like it's just, and if you would like one, I'll drop it to your manager or to your hotel or wherever." Like I was trying to say, I don't need to meet you. I'm not trying to do it to meet you or anything. It was really just, if you'd like one, I'd love to gift one, make one for you. And so we kept in touch. She gave me her phone number. Like we were just like,
now you're mates.
and we met up and I gave her the artwork and we went out for a drink and like it was I say I'm sitting there with her and we were chatting away like, old friends. It was the weirdest thing. And then it wasn't until I got home that it was like, how did this happen? How did these things happen? I don't understand. Yeah, that was amazing.
As someone who writes stories of such ridiculous narratives, how is it not apparent to you that some weird things can just happen in real life?
I don't know, but that they have happened all my life. All my life, even before the art stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
that's interesting.
I don't know. I obviously I don't want to say I manifest it, but stuff just happens. I'll run with it.
I like that. That could just be put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Life ethos. Stuff just happens. And it does.
Yeah.
Stuff just
I've been very lucky that I've had good stuff happen to me.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that in a way it is. I don't know if manifesting is the right word for it, but you've kind of just moved through life and meandered through and done it in a way that maybe without realizing has been accidentally intentional.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm stumped, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know why. But I'm, I think it's awesome. I'm glad all these things have happened, but I certainly haven't. Well, you're right. Maybe I have unintentionally
made
things
in one
happen.
way or another.
I don't know.
Earlier this week, I was speaking with Michelle Grace Hunter. She's a photographer, and she picked up the camera relatively late in a professional career. She was, I think, 31.
Yeah.
She was working, she's had a background in, I think it was like sports science and then in sports marketing. A bunch of different circumstances played out in her professional life where she drew a line in the sand and said that I want to be a professional photographer.
Wow.
And that was it. And then that was 15 years ago.
Amazing.
And she's one of the most prolific music photographers of musical performances,
Yeah.
whether it be album covers or press shots.
How incredible.
And similar kind of thing, right? Like, it's just something that you wouldn't have thought
Yeah.
was going to happen. It wasn't necessarily something that you're gearing your life towards. There are some artists that have just been, since day dot, have just felt compelled to do it. And for some people, not so much, and just didn't realize that they had it in them until a particular event in their lives.
Yeah.
And it just
It's thrown them in a different direction.
Yeah. So
it's so cool, isn't it? Like,
it's
because
wild.
that stuff is life changing,
Yeah, quite literally.
isn't it? Like,
yeah.
and how exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just one of those things, being open to the absurdity of life.
Yeah.
And just being welcoming to
Yeah.
things just completely shifting at any moment.
Absolutely. And I think that maybe that's it. I have got an open mind for that. So,
Yeah.
and I've always welcomed that, even perhaps in times where it could have gone either way. Like, certainly, in my earlier years of travelling overseas and going into situations which I probably shouldn't have, or were slightly dangerous, or, a bit kind of left of centre. But it always worked out for me. But I had a, story or an adventure along the way as a result of the decision I made to do this particular thing at a particular time. Yeah, sorry, that sounds a bit vague, but
no, but it is that sense of adventure, right? And just that openness and the willingness to
let's see what happens,
and to embrace that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, good fun.
So what's up next?
What is up next? I've got 4 months to put together 10 artworks for the Affordable Art Fair that's going to be in Melbourne in August, and I'm excited about that. Yeah, that will be fun. So I have had a bit of a hiatus for the last few months. I've had a bit of for the first time in my life, stuck. Yeah. I think because I moved my studio home, we renoed a room at home, and that's my dedicated studio, but it feels weird because I'm so used to leaving my house to go and do art.
To get in that headspace.
Yeah. So I've got to create
recalibrate.
Yeah, I need a new routine so that I'm not very good with self-discipline, obviously. So I've got to, crack the whip on myself.
It's hard, right? Like trying to find that spark, but at the same time having to instill layers of that discipline to help that spark.
I think I'd sort of thought maybe I just need to get out on the street this year and do more on the street. And, I still think I should. There's a part of me that's like, oh, but all the effort, it'll just disappear. And then the other part of me is like, but I love doing it. So maybe that will give me some inspiration to sit down and
just the practice of
really,
it. Maybe that's
create
the thing.
some good artwork.
And once it's out there, it's like, don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's the process.
Because you can't force it, can you? Like,
well,
you can try, but invariably you're not often happy with the result.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the forcing of it is just to get parts firing in the brain.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just something that you gotta, like, let's just say that if you want to, I just think for me it's like painting, right? That's my my weapon of choice.
Yeah,
is that if you're gonna wait for that moment to strike, it might not come, but it's just getting that brush down or getting pen to paper. And there's a lot of people that have a daily practice, a lot of artists that do that. Whether or not they like it, they'll just force themselves to do it, and it just fires parts of your brain and it just forms, the synapses are connecting in a way that will eventually then get you to the place that you need to be.
That's really good advice for me right now. Thank you.
It's not mine. I'm taking it from all the other artists.
But it's true. It's what I need to do. I need to sit down and just go, come on.
Start
a few things and...
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now I've created this big thing about, I don't know what to do. And
yeah,
now it's getting...
It's,
you know,
then it becomes a mountain that you need to climb.
and I've got a room full of wonderful things I can play with, you know.
Yeah. Like
But,
I've spoken with artists that have a daily practice just to make sure that they're active. And even if they don't feel compelled to, even if they don't like the work they're doing, they will just create. And not even just create, but they'll also post every day. I think that was a big part of it, to hold themselves accountable.
Yeah, okay.
And even if it's shit, they don't like it, they're like, we're going to put it up just so we can take that criticism and learn from that experience.
Yeah.
Because I think there's also another layer of creating for creating's sake. There is benefit in that. But when you share it and putting yourself out there, then that's the vulnerability that you're exposing yourself to.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of growth and a lot of lessons that can be learned from that as well.
And I'm probably not good at putting the vulnerability out there.
Oh no, I don't think anyone's really good at it either. I think it's just something that you got to, if you want, just force yourself to do, and only good things will come from it.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this not as someone that is doing it, not currently anyway, but I will very soon to start. Showing flaws and all in the work.
Well, I've got no excuse not to, because I've got a studio there and it's got all the things in it and, a beautiful space to kind of create. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So when's this exhibition?
That is in August in Melbourne. Okay. Yeah. So that'll be fun. I did it with the Brisbane one last year and with Nationwide Curating. And that was really great. I sold all the work there.
Oh, wow.
And so, which I wasn't surprised. I was surprised by because it was the first time they'd held it in Brisbane. So we weren't sure sort of, how it would be received.
If you have an audience there yet. Or,
I just didn't know. So I think they were perhaps a new audience. I don't know. So we'll see how it goes in Melbourne. But the good thing about it being in Melbourne is I can be there as well and talk to people and have a bit of a laugh. That's a bit I love.
And you get to see their reactions to it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I'm a bit of a people person, so it's nice to be able to be loud with them.
And in the meantime, where can people find your work, connect with you?
Instagram is really the only place. I still don't have a website 10 years later.
I guess you probably don't need it.
I might probably miss the boat on that. But, Instagram's the main portal for me.
Yeah, we'll put up all the links.
Yeah, thank you.
Tinky, thanks so much for this conversation. This has been a lot of fun.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.